Guys, we have two shows to discuss, and I really don't mind which order we discuss them in. Kev, I suppose you're sick, so a little, and I've forced you to come on here against your will. So I suppose we can let you pick which of the two episodes would you rather discuss first: The Boys, House of the Dragon.
As I'm sick, we'll go with sick Gareth Ennis, in a different kind of sick, and we'll go with the boys maybe first.
Okay, interesting. Fair enough. We're gonna go with The
I like
Boys.
it.
And for both episodes, we're going to recap and put you back into the mindset of what happened in the episode with our alt recap, starting with season 4, episode 4, The Boys. And Homelander pays a visit to the lab that tortured and crafted him as a young soup, exacting brutal revenge on Frank for cooking him in an oven, and Marty for laughing at him for having a wank as a teenager, and Barbara for psychologically engineering him to need love and approval as a method of control, which somehow might be the most fucked up part. He leaves the reunion feeling psychologically cleansed, but predictably so fucking bloody that his suit can never be dry cleansed enough. Frenchie tells Colin that it's fine if he doesn't give every gruesome detail about his family's murder, but he does anyway. Ugh, oversharers, am I right? Colin says that he was there and actually remembers the scars on the murderer's ankles, which is awkwardly a level of attention to detail he doesn't have for his lovers. Nobody is coming out of this looking good. Later, Frenchie is so racked with guilt he confesses and Colin beats the shit out of him. There's a lot to be said for just ghosting someone, Frenchie. You could avoid all of this. Huey's mom signs off on an NDR and a DNR as his dad now meets the criteria for brain death, which sounds like a shit tasteless comeback to a Yoreld one joke. Yoreld one is so poor she puts out the bins with the shopping list. Yeah, well, your dad meets the criteria for brain death. All right, calm down. He enlists A-Train to hook him up with some Compound V to rescue his dad, meaning that we finally get to see zombies. We might finally get to see zombies Simon Pegg after all these years. Don't worry, Yui. I'm sure if something happens, you can just go to the Winchester and wait for all of this to blow over. This happens in spite of Butcher trying to warn Yui that V didn't cure his ailments. He may have spoken too soon, as while trying to dig up the dirt on Firecracker, he blacks out and finds himself in a room covered in a hypocritical Christian fundamentalist innards. Who among us hasn't after a long night at church camp, though? Or is that just my own fucked up childhood memory? Anyway, Annie offers Bob Singer help to rally support for his superhero control bill. By episode's end, that was relegated to Plan Z, because after even attempting to out Firecracker as a pedophile to shut her down backfires, because frankly, nobody is surprised that a Bible basher is a pedophile anymore. It's revealed that she had an abortion, a move that causes Starlight to snap and beat the piss out of her on live TV. Guys, you've heard of Netflix and chill, but you may never have heard of Sage's equivalent, because when you're the world's smartest person, a couple of binging shit reality TV just won't cut it. Instead, she enlisted deep for some lobotomy and sodomy. And that was just another week for The Boys. That was episode 4 of season 4, Wisdom for the Ages. Kev, you picked this one. So what were your overall thoughts of the episode, and what are your overall vibes of season 4 so far?
This I love the first 3 episodes. I thought it was I did binge them all together, to be fair, as well. And it was a lot. And I guess it was a lot of the same thing for the first 3 episodes as well. But this, I felt like, really kind of kicked it up a notch for me. And this was one of the best episodes of The Boys I've seen in fucking ages, man. It's really, really good. It was like an episode where not that much superpowers, I suppose, are really used. And it was an episode about forgiveness and revenge. And yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Dan, how are you feeling about season 4? Is it kind of matching up to the first 3 seasons, which is a high bar? Again, if it's not, that's fair enough. It's still a good show. But what are your overall thoughts?
I totally agree with what Kev said. I think that I didn't actually binge them just with like real life getting in the way. It was a case, I think we actually did an episode a night, so it was a bit more time to digest it. But even at that, I just thought episode 4, this one was an exceptional one. And like Kev said, if you were to name a particular scene from the first 3 episodes, I would be able to talk about it, but I might not be able to tell you straight off the bat which one it was from, 1, 2, or 3.
Mm.
But 4 was so enclosed in its theme and how it handled everything, because it kind of just jumped between Homelander's Red Room experimental sort of cell and the Trump-esque mini rally that was going on outside Vought Towers. So when you think of episode 4, you're going to know exactly what was happening in that one because the staging was so obvious. I thought this was an absolutely brilliant episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Last week I spoke about how I kind of wasn't crazy about them being really on the nose as a like for like kind of political satire, being aware of how it's an election year and they're trying to show Homelander being Trump. And I want this show to be more just like, look how fucking stupid and ridiculous superheroes would be in the real world. And this was a welcome return in that direction. I really enjoyed this episode. My concern with season 4 kind of still exists without, while still immensely enjoying it, because it seems like the story for now is a bit all over the place. Like it lacks the kind of connective tissue of previous seasons. In season 1, for example, you had them kind of just pulling the curtain back on Vought. Season 2 showed how impossible it was to even land a blow on Vought, and season 3 was about how even the boys themselves can be corrupted in their pursuit of Vought. There's a lot of fun set pieces, and the performances in this show are always great. So I'm always going to love this. And like Kev, as soon as I switched this show on and saw an hour and 6 minutes, last week it was a lot because you had to get through 3 and I wanted to get through them back to back to back. But this week I'm like, yes, give me all of it. I want as long episodes as possible, especially in the wake of The Acolyte being like 27 minutes, which was ridiculous this week. But for me, it hasn't fully gelled yet. It hasn't settled into a rhythm. Like, what does Yui's dad's illness have to do with Homelander's lack of purpose, or Butcher's death, or Frenchie killing Colin, or Annie getting an abortion? It just seems like a lot of the characters are all off in their own individual strands, and I don't know what the theme is yet. I don't know what kind of we're all building towards. And again, it can seem that way. Like even Marvel at times, like Marvel really works and the MCU works when you feel like there's a Thanos-like bad guy looming in the background. Whereas if everyone's just off doing their own thing, it can just seem a bit all over the place. But look, I'm glad to be back and I'm raging. And this is another reason I hate 3-episode premieres, that we're already halfway through this season. It feels like it's just started. But yeah, I'm loving this so far. I want to pay my respects and say rest in peace to Frank, Marty, Barbara, and all the rest of the Vought scientists. Revenge is a big theme of this week's episode, between Ashley leaving floaters in Homelander's toilet. Love that little detail. Amazing. While he left his childhood trauma quite literally burned alive, cockless, and locked away in a bloody vault. An interesting form of therapy. Let's kind of dig into that session. What were your kind of thoughts of Homelander's return home, Dan?
Yeah, so you're not supposed to love Homelander. I want to prefix with that, but it's so fun sometimes to just look at the world through his bullshit sociopathic tendencies. And if we did have like that like Superman sort of character in the world, would he be more Clark Kent, raised with that Kansas morals, or would he be like John Homelander, where he just sees the rest of us as cockroaches? It was a really tense set of scenes in this whole Red Room thing. What is he going to do next? And if someone had really done these horrible things to you as a child, would you, having the powers and having the near, like, I mean, godlike sort of presence that he has, like, would be exact revenge, or would it be a case of turning the other cheek? And the way he plays with them like a cat that's caught an already hurt bird was just like really kind of fun to watch, but at the same time just deplorable. I just thought the scenes were just incredibly tense. It was a great reminder of just how sick and how twisted the character is. Um, and I suppose that once again he's getting closer to removing the last strand of his humanity. And are we going to see an Omega Homelander, not in any sort of character change, atypical comic sense, but is he going to be able to transcend the boundaries that he's kind of set for himself and become this supremely evil, non-caring, worse version of himself? I think that's what we got to see a bit of this week.
Yeah, I think we're tiptoeing in that direction. Kev, what were your thoughts on Homelander's kind of arc this week?
Yeah, as I think as soon as he stepped out of the elevator, you knew everyone was just fucked down there. Like you're just like, oh no, and your heart starts racing. It's like, how is this gonna go down? And what kind of like messed up way is this gonna go down? The only thing is though, it's the one time in a long time where you do feel like you're on Homelander's side because these scientists remind me a little bit of I guess like Nazis in World War II, being like we were just doing our job, we were just following orders, and him taking revenge on that basically as well. And you can't help but be on Homelander's side, even if it is like the most fucked up kind of thing. Um, you can't help but be on a side, and that was I thought like an interesting and yeah, just an interesting kind of topic on Homelander this week. And I think it was just like it's another layer to his character that nearly I don't know, for me it kind of nearly made him a little more human because and it's the thing that he hates as well is love is his kryptonite in this. Like that's what he hates about himself is like he just really requires love because he was like that's like one of the most fucked up things in the show is like psychologically manipulated into like needing love, and it's a really human emotion I think, and he hates that about himself. So I love that about him that he nearly just hates him how human he is, and this was a really good example of you're kind of like yeah fucking a Homelander, go get those Nazi sons of bitches.
Yeah, there was like, and the phrase that came to mind for me is one that's often used to describe the Nazis and what they did, the banality of evil. Like, it's such a boring
Yeah,
lab. It's such a, like, when, as we meet them and as we kind of look around and imagine what the day to day is like, because we spent so much time there throughout the episode, you're like, this is just boring. This is just a workplace, you know? And it reminds me of that phrase, the banality of evil, where it's just boring. It's not actually, it's people thinking, it's people coming to work thinking this is what I have to do to earn a living to feed my family. And that's what's fucked up about it. And then Homelander just living the consequences of it. But there's a tragedy to it as well, in that, like, yes, we see how Homelander was just a boy and they psychologically engineered him to be a sociopath who is desperate and craves human attention because that was a measure of control. It was the only thing they could do to control him. I thought it was absolutely delicious. I loved like the hypocrisy of Barbara, like turning around and being like, they were scared and standing on the moral high ground with him. And it's like, we had a job to do. And it's like, you do not get to raise your voice at anyone, but it also shows that, it tells a story in itself. And why it's tragedy is it sets apart this sequence of events that, yeah, you're having show Homelander now shed his humanity. He's talking to Ryan in a way we've never heard Homelander talk to Ryan, because all Homelander wants to do, because of this weakness that they've put inside, and I love the description of it as his kryptonite, is he just wants to fit in. He just wants to be a role model. He just wants to be cheered by adoring fans. And now we're seeing that ripped away. So that actually makes Homelander more evil than he ever was. So there was nothing here, no redeemable kind of features here as well. The question that I went away though was, and I thought it was a brilliant performance by a lot of the actors here, particularly Murray Farrow, who played was it Frank, or was it, no, it was Marty. Has he ever wanked before though?
Not in front of people, though, clearly.
That's worse
It's
because
not exactly a spectator sport, so
it's not. But to be fair, he didn't see it that way himself. So I kind of see Homelander's point. But like, he was almost laughing, like he was like, ah, and I'm like, this is next level messed up, but also very distracting because I'm like, is that what you do? Like, it was very strange. It was very distracting, but a great scene. Like, it didn't take away from anything. Another question I have for you guys. you get a week's trial, say, and May gives it to you. I don't think any of us would not necessarily be subscribing, but you get a week's trial to Vault Plus. We got some of the a sample of the content, and I love this. Is my favorite part of the boys, where like the performance that the Deep did and Firecracker did, and that they used as the song for the closing credits of Love Lifts Us Up When We culture. And how they just give us like clips of the culture. It's fucking genius. But what would you guys watch on Vault Plus if you had the chance? Would you watch Training A Train, Tech Knight's expose on the Godolphin 4, the Cameron Cole Hours presidential race analysis, or Firecracker's Truth Bombs Starlight special? What would your go-to be if you got that Vault Plus subscription?
The Tech Jacket one was quite interesting, and the subtleties of how he was introducing stuff, like he constantly mentioned the word falling into a deep dark hole. So knowing what we know about Tech Knight from Gen V, is he going to be able to keep his mind on what he's doing? And then just like watch it, or is every kind of thing going to defer to what hole can I stick my dick in next?
Oh my god, yeah.
So deep, so dark.
So yes, my number one thing would be good. How much is this guy going to make penile phallic metaphors? And yeah, I think I'd like to, knowing what I know now, I'd like to like try and observe that and try and break it down.
I think you've
So that's what I
sold
go
me. Yeah, Kev, what would you watch any of them? Would you go for a bit of Feral Streep in
I went the
Training
Feral
A-Train?
Streep, yeah. I went the Training A Train one, man. Just from that I think I put it into the chat as well. Was just the first scene of episode 2. I was like, what? I love that. And I do hope I don't know, I just want to see more of it. Because it's essentially just like it sounds like a Blindside story, like the Sandra Bullock movie.
And A-Train's like, my dad worked in the shop, like my brother went to college.
Yeah,
and
they've just whitewashed it completely.
I don't know. I got very jealous of the commenters watching the Starlight special. I love that where like, you know, when you get to see like the little live video comments, and some of the ones I picked out were like Starlight kicked ass, SL lived long enough to become the villain. I love that as an observation. Or one was like staged so fake to the official Starlight fan page saying they lost loads of respect for her, which I found really interesting. I got really jealous watching that because I'm like, I would live tweet the shit out of that. Imagine when old school Twitter, when Twitter was good. Imagine live tweeting the Starlight, the Truth Bomb with Firecracker. That was amazing. But what were your thoughts on the kind of the Truth Bomb, all the revelations, everything around it? Of course, we had that little side quest where you know, RIP to I forget his name, Ezekiel, who Butcher took out at one stage. What were your thoughts on that, Kev? Yeah, and everything that kind of came of it.
Oh, the thoughts on what is it? Sorry,
The Truth Bomb with Firecracker.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the. I kind of like the message with that because I know you're talking about like with in terms of how political, I suppose the last couple of episodes were, but I kind of do like the fact that they were calling the left out. I think a little bit with this as well of, the controversy where she was just like she tweeted it and she didn't give a shit about it. Like I think there's that whole concept of the left wanting to be right rather than be understanding to the other side, and then the right side of the political culture is just like, look, we're all together in this, even if you've done something fucking weird like that. And I do think that was a great way of kind of just, you're not going after the right completely, which I kind of want this show to do as well, because like some of the extreme left can be just as bad as well. So I really like that about this episode actually. With Firecrackers, what was it? What was it? Kind of just like a telethon kind of thing where like every hour there was like more stuff revealed, I suppose. But yeah, I like and then they had the whole grand finale thing as well. But like I like that they kind of do take jobs at everyone, because it was getting a bit like, oh, this is just kind of like shooting fish in a barrel at this stage with some of the stuff from last week.
Yeah, I agree. And not to get political on it, but I'm very much a proponent of, while I'd be liberal leaning a lot in my views, and I joined a left political party as well. So like I would be very on that side in terms of like what I believe, but I'm very much and I can get into this level of political satire as long as you're not trying to do Trump in the election year and be really on the nose. I don't mind you reflecting the world, because again, I'm a big believer that the actions of the left and how, again, like what Butcher is trying to achieve there isn't to it's not to show how disgraceful she is. It has nothing to do with the child she took advantage of who was too young to have sex. It is to do with winning and getting his way and enforcing his worldview of people. And that's an interesting hypocrisy. Whereas again, yeah, like you say, Kev, the kind of hard right has the attitude of, yeah, it's not about what you've done. I don't give a fuck. We're in this together. We're a team. And that's probably why Trump is going to end up getting reelected in November, because the hard right can consolidate like that while the left is trying to kind of win small battles. I loved that aspect as well. And that was the thing that stuck with me. Firecracker just going, I'll just post it. And then like how quickly everyone forgave her. And you're like, God, that probably would be what happened. And also the connotations of, is it different because it's a woman and a guy? And it gets you just thinking about those kind of themes and subjects, which I really liked, but in a very entertaining way. Dan, what were your thoughts on kind of the truth bomb and all the all that kind of transpired within it, but also kind of outside, like kind of the scenes itself?
So the whole truth bomb thing was Sister Sage's like big scheme. It was her idea, and it's at its core, it's her intelligence, which is her superpower, you know, in effect. And Firecracker is just her a tool in this whole thing. I did think the whole thing with the information about her being a pedophile was kind of glazed over very quickly, and it was kind of almost became a footnote. Like you said, though, now that you've kind of brought up the whole idea of how would this happen in the current world climate, especially from the point of view of the political right, it does make it a bit more interesting, but it felt very rushed to me. But even though I enjoyed this episode, if I want to get down to it, I expected from Sister Sage to be a lot more playing 4D chess, like she's several steps above everyone. But her plans seem very sound, but relatively straightforward. I mean, her mantle as the most intelligent person in the world, it's not coming across to me right now as strong as this sort of character written in any other medium would be. She's got to hold people, she's playing them like, you know, pawns on the chessboard. But I would love to see her and her schemes be grander, be more elaborate. But the way the actual truth bomb part and everything was framed, it wasn't, like you said, thankfully, I'm kind of in the same camp as you. I don't want this to be a parody of what Trump does. It took hits from like a Trump rally, but there is also just the over Americananess that you'll find that, like, even like when Biden's talking or something like that, it is just America jammed down your throat.
It is.
And that, like, from a European point of view, is incredibly fun to observe, because even though we're sometimes blind to our own problems here, it's like, at least we don't do that shit. But we do. And so I think for us, it's really, really fun. I think probably for some Americans, it might cut a bit close to the bone. And I did really want to see what Jon Voight and Kanye West got up to with Firecracker, though. But I feel like we really, really got robbed of that. Throw Jim Busey in, and I'm telling you, that's gonna get me to subscribe to the Vault Network. Holy shit!
Yeah, like I don't have much of an appetite for Kanye West, but I am.
I hate the guy, but if he's gonna be dicking around with superheroes who are trying to like get like maniacs elected president, sign me up.
I am begging the boys to just give him whatever he wants for that cameo and he's not self-aware enough to realize he's the pun of that joke. He thinks that'll be a tribute, and like,
it's the Clayfish all over again.
Yeah, I'm begging this. I want to pick up on the point you made around Sage, because that's a really good point. Because, and it's one of these things that we see whenever you see a TV show or movie about, we're going to write the best song ever. And the problem is, it's not the best song ever. Like, if it's fictional, like it's not, because you're focusing on making a movie and you're not a musician and you're not the greatest musician ever. So it's tough to write the most intelligent person ever if you're not the most intelligent person, because what would that look like? And again, a lot of our tactics are just like, yeah, that's what like Trump does now, and I definitely don't think he's the most intelligent person ever. You know what I mean? So it is an interesting point, but I think the thing that undermines Sage more than anything else is she's having sex with the deep. And I think that
She's also giving herself lobotomies.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Has anyone ever like I'm a big don't knock it till you try it guy, but
It's
has
bringing
anyone ever
penetration to the next level anyway.
tried an old sneaky lobotomy and sodomy in the spare time? I don't know. Just throw it out there. I love as well. This just such an amazing. I love when the show throws away jokes like this, and it's like we can have anal sex while watching Kim Kardashian and Ray J sex tape, and he's like, "I'm in." And I love the Deep is one of my favorite characters in this show, if not my favorite. I love this line reading where he's like, "I am down for like a lot," but and it's like, yeah, well, he does have an octopus that he fucks waiting at home in his wardrobe. He's not lying.
Where has she been, by the way, as well?
Yeah, Ambrosius.
Yeah.
Again, I cannot state this enough. Ambrosius is played by Tilda Swinton. Everyone needs to talk about this. You have one of the biggest actresses in Hollywood playing an octopus who fucks the deep. It's incredible. Yeah, I know. Justice for Ambrosius. I hope she finds out somehow. I hope there's like a drain she can sneak down, and you just see her in the background of Sage's apartment.
By the way, as well, did you see the text on the Starlight Foundation wall?
No, what was it?
A safe space for at-risk teens, which spells out asphalt.
How could this show be so intelligent and still be written by 12-year-olds? Amazing. So yeah, like the deep his kind of deal is for lobotomy, he will do it if he gets anal sex and Kim Kardashian and Ray J sex tape. I guess my question is, what is your guys' rider for doing that to Sage? Like, what would you need? What would be her kind of, what would she have to bribe you with to say deal? Like, it doesn't have to be like sexual. It can be anything. Like, what, Kev, what would you say?
Cheeseburger and a like, and a hug.
Cheeseburger and a hug. And you seem kind of into it. Like, I got you a double cheeseburger for this episode. I didn't know. Kev, what would your rider be for this?
I think I'd just be empathetic enough to just be like, yeah, okay.
You're really taking the nice guy thing too far. Okay, I will put a hammer and
Like,
sickle in your eye.
If you like, but if I know she's a superhero, though, anyway, and it's like, yeah, maybe do the scraping part yourself, but I'll hammer it in a little bit.
I'll get it in there, and then I'm just gonna go out and have a smoke, and you can scrape away while I'm gone. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, it's interesting though. Another kind of consequence from the truth bomb was obviously rest in peace to Ezekiel. This had a high body count, even for an episode of The Boys. And Ezekiel is not a minor character. Like, he's going back to season 1. Obviously, they you know, he had the kind of closeted gay hypocritical Christian storyline, and there's not much left of him, so he's not like a massive loss to the show, although I did appreciate the cameo here. Dan, this might be something where you may not be able to discuss further with your comic book knowledge, but I know it also deviates from the comics quite a lot, and they've modernized it. Do you think this confirms that Butcher is now a soup, like with what we've got from this scene, or is that something that you cannot discuss?
From what I know of the comics, because I haven't read a lot, I've just kind of like dipped my toe with The Boys. Wasn't something I was too into. Like I said, not necessarily a Garrett Ennis fan, but I do know everything that happens in the story at least. And I don't think there's anything in the comics that relates to this. This seems to be a completely new concept. Now I could be wrong with that, so this is not gospel. But the one thing I will say here is everything's so obviously leading to Billy having this power, this newer power, it seems to be, like, or an evolution of the ones we've seen in season 3. but I kind of don't buy that. I don't think that Ezekiel and Billy might necessarily be connected right now. I think we're supposed to think it because there were so many obvious things going, like look at this, the worm in his spine and certain other things that we've seen along the way, but I think there might be some intervention here, and I'm just wondering, is Victoria, ironically enough, the one who's playing 4D chess, and there was some intervention here because if this was Billy, then why didn't we see it? There was no reason for him to pass out, use his powers, and then wake up and be covered in Ezekiel. Like, even if he lost consciousness and it was something that triggers when he's, near death. Why didn't we even see that as well? There was no reason to hide this from us unless there's something else going on. And so I think we're supposed to think, yeah, Billy's a full-blown soup, which he still could be, but I don't know if that's what happened here. That's not coming from the comics. That's just coming from me looking at how the story was constructed and like something else is afoot here, in my opinion. And I think
Yeah.
it could be something to do with Victoria.
I think that's a great show because yeah, we got very little of Newman beyond their kind of denouncing Starlight, but then last week she kind of wanted to make a deal with the boys in episode 1.
Yeah.
We're getting very little Newman anyway, and it's like it seems even the way with the happenings of this week, like Singer is even going to be distancing himself from the boys. Like, so how does she tie into things? So yeah, it's interesting. Kev, what are your own thoughts on any thoughts or theories on what's going on with Butcher and what happened to Ezekiel?
Yeah, I never even thought or gave any kind of thought about that being Newman, but that's a really good that's a good shout. But the worm thing, the thing that I thought about the worm is if it was some sort of maybe this show's symbiote, if it was some creature inside him that was maybe protecting him. Because like I don't remember seeing anything of a worm with anybody else or any other superhero.
Yeah.
And if it was some other creature that was maybe an equivalent to that or something similar to that, where it would like just protect him when he was about to die. I also don't know if he took the V as well. When because when you said he stole some of Frenchie's, I think it was. I don't know if he took that or not.
Yeah.
When he says it in the flashback, but yeah, that's kind of where my head went to a little bit with the worm because they focus on the worm a ton, and I don't know, that's what I kind of came up with in my head a little bit. Maybe if it's something like that, I'd love if it was that because it'd be fucking sick.
I've got a theory, and it's not fleshed out enough that even I understand it. So just bear with me on this. But all I have in my head is Becca isn't a hallucination. And I don't know what that means, but I'm just like, that's not a hallucination. So yeah, it could be some like symbiote kind of
Becca's the worm.
yeah, like almost, yeah, like, but like the worm is also has like Murph like powers like the X-Men, and it can it can transfigure into anything. Do you know what I mean? So it's appearing as Becca that motivates Homelander or something like that. I don't know what that means. I'm like, Becca's not a hallucination because that's not the boys to me. Just having a hallucination and Homelander talking to himself or something I didn't like about episodes 1 to 3. Homelander and Yui just kind of exposition dumping like their internal monologue. I'm like, that the boys doesn't do that. That's cheap TV. So I don't know. I just think Becca she feels real to Homelander. And I think she could be there, or it could be something that he's actually seeing, or there's something going on there. It's a strange one though. It's interesting. Watch this.
And if she is real, maybe she's the key to getting Ryan maybe to switch sides from Homelander then as well to get Ryan away from him. That could be fucking cool, yeah.
Yeah,
so what you're saying is that like the worm, like it could be a hallucination, but Billy's seeing something that the worm is allowing him to see. That it is a hallucination, but it's not just in his own head. It's something. It's like this defense mechanism that he's getting from this after effect from the V, and it's protecting Billy.
Yeah, exactly. Like and again, like he's seen Becca when he's around other people, and they haven't seen her. But I think it's a projection from the worm rather than just something that's happening in his head from memory. I think is more, again, I don't fully know what it means, but I'm just looking at it and going, that's just not a straight up hallucination. We'll see anyway. I could be talking straight off and on. Last thing on this, last week I came out and perhaps a bit controversially said, I didn't care if Huey died. It'd actually make, if they Ned Starked him, it'd actually make for a really effective death at this stage, because I was struggling to see how relevant he was. Good news, I no longer want that. From making peace with A-Train to cutting a shining light assassin's throat with a box cutter to having to deal now with his new super-powered zombie dad, Huey is relevant again. Praise the Lord. At least I'm back on the Huey hype train. What are your own thoughts? Kev, how are you feeling about Huey now and his kind of arc?
I totally agreed with you last week, by the way, as well, when I was listening to the podcast. He's still kind of the weakest link a little bit for me, but I do. I suppose I'm intrigued to see where the stuff with his mother goes, and then the stuff with the zombie Simon Pegg potentially. And I did like, one of my favorite bits of this episode was the closure with A-Train. I thought that was great, and it's gonna be, I suppose, A-Train's real face turn here. I think he's gonna, because he's been helping him out tons really as well. So I liked seeing that, and it was nice seeing a bit of closure there too.
Dan, what are your thoughts on Huey's arc?
Yeah, he did sink into the background a lot. Even last season, his powers were kind of lame. That he got with Compound V, like he can teleport, but you're gonna be naked every time. It's like you're not gonna exactly teleport into a fight. We only know Hugo Bortstein can fight naked. But I actually feel like that we're going somewhere, and not a spoiler from the comics because they're not going to go that way, but we've seen what happens when someone who is dead is injected with Compound V. One of the characters that died last season, it happened, and like I'm not going to give too much away, but in the comics, and of course there's it's not really even a spoiler because we've seen in the trailer there now, there could be a Marvel-esque red herring, we don't know, but it looks like that there's that scene of Simon Pegg as a zombie. It looks like they have a lot of like blood blacked out as they usually do in trailers to keep it from being like taken down. So I would say there could be, Huey could find himself being an orphan, because I just don't know if the mom's in the room and Hugh Senior comes out of the coma as a compound V zombie, is he gonna go straight for the mother?
Yeah, interesting.
If he is a zombie, which it wasn't really explored too much in the comics, but just enough for us to know kind of like what the rules are around it. How stoppable could he be? I mean, you talked at the start of this podcast about what is the overall arcing story of this season, and once again, not basing this on anything I've read or anything I've seen, but like, what if Hugh Senior zombie is a Compound V roided up zombie that the boys or maybe some of the Seven can't stop?
Interesting. I'm terrified of or for Huey's mom. Because what's going under the radar, because of the emotion of everything else, is she's like in the Vought cult. She's bought in. She's the person who is in your friend group who calls himself a business person, but is really in a pyramid scheme to sell as much Vought content as possible. That's who she is, essentially. And like, it's almost unhinged. Like, this was a fucked up move by her, because think about the short space of time that she had to make that decision and go for it. Like, again, she didn't know where Huey was. She didn't know he was getting V. She just saw it and did it. And that is dangerous. And there's something fucked up there. I think she's in big trouble. If the zombie theory pans out. And I think there's something to that. I think that sounds reasonable. But yeah, and also Simon Pegg as a zombie. It's so perfect. Amazing. The first time most of us saw Simon Pegg, it was in a zombie movie. So yeah, it'd be amazing. Are we all good on the boys? Good to move on to House of the Dragon, or anyone have anything else sad?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.